Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this webinar around transformational leadership, where we're going to be looking at the emerging challenges and key skills needed for success for leaders during transformation. My name's Matt. I'm part of the marketing team here at BIE, and I'm joined today by three of the leadership team who are going to form our panel. So I'll pass over to them now to introduce themselves. So starting with Emma Clare, I'll pass over to you.
Thank you, Matt. Good morning, everyone. I'm Emma Clare. I am a co-leader of the people and culture practice here at BIE. I've been in the industry, and I'll say this very quickly, for 30 years. So I've had the privilege of working with organisations going through change over those 30 years. My personal passion, not surprisingly, on the people side is all things people transformation and change.
Thanks, Ems. I'm Byron Tarboton. Good morning, all. For my sins, I've been at BIE almost 15 years now. Some might say too long. I lead the technology practice, hiring capability across CIO, CTO, digital data, cyber, and technology program leadership, covering things like ERP, CRM implementations, etc. Simon, over to you.
Thanks, Byron. Morning, all. Simon Moore. I lead our CFO, our supply chain, and our procurement practice. Still not 100% sure why you've got me on this, Matt. I'm certainly no expert in the space. However, I have spent 24 years building fantastic relationships with really incredible experts who lead very, very complex businesses, which inevitably go through major transformation. During that time, we've provided all sorts of different support, and as a result of that, I'm sure there are plenty of stories we can tell today.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. And Simon, I'm sure you're underselling yourself there when it comes to your knowledge and wisdom that you'll be adding on this webinar. But yeah, thank you all for joining me today on this session. So today we're going to be talking about transformational leadership, and it's going to be based on our Transformational Leadership Report that we've recently produced. So we had a survey that went out to 823 senior leaders across the UK. Respondents were from a variety of sectors with different kind of functional expertise that they looked after. And we explored themes around transformation, key challenges, skills that leaders are going to need right now and in the future. And today we're going to be touching on a few of the themes that came out from that report, but you can view the full report on our website, and we'll also be sharing it via email with you all later this week as well. So today we're going to dive into a few of those themes, and we're going to discuss them in more detail. Just a little note, I noticed a few people mentioned the chat wasn't working for people before. That should now have been sorted, so you should be able to access that chat. So to kick us off then, we're going to have a look at the key challenges that are facing leaders right now and in the future. Now, what we found from our results was that two challenges stood out significantly compared to the other challenges that we listed, and they were technology change and cybersecurity. The green bar you'll see on the left-hand side, that's how many leaders rated it as a current challenge right now, as a top challenge right now. So you'll see cybersecurity slightly higher, nearly 50% of leaders ranking that as a challenge right now. And technology change, around 35% of leaders ranking that as a challenge right now. And the orange bar is how much of a challenge they see it being over the next 5 years. Again, they're both sitting around 40% of our respondents saw these as a key challenge over the next 5 years. So clearly front of mind for leaders right now, but also in the future too. So if we take cybersecurity first and think about that, what should organizations be doing to minimize the risk of this challenge? And I'm going to come to you, Byron, first to talk about cybersecurity.
Thanks, Matt. I think, well, the obvious first point is hire a cybersecurity expert if you don't have one, which seems like a simple answer, but for some businesses, they struggle with whether they should or not hire someone, particularly if you a CISO level, which is a Chief Information Security Officer. what they deliver. For those who don't know what a CISO is, they focus on developing and leading the information security program, so protecting organizational assets, application systems, technology, while sort of enabling and advancing business outcomes. People may ask, why is cybersecurity so important? Obviously, feedback from the survey says it is. If things go wrong, it can cost the business a lot of money, and that's not just purely from ransom, but it's remediation, further investments, reputational and brand damage, which obviously leads on to customer loyalty too. Just in terms of some examples of large cyber attacks, just to put it in perspective. Now these are larger corporates than kind of small or mid-sized businesses, but an organization, Equifax, cost them $1.4 billion in terms of both ransom and remediation work. Yahoo, $470 million. Target, $300 million. TJX, or TK Maxx as people know it, $256 million. Sony PlayStation, $171 million, and Uber, $148 million. So that just highlights what it can cost a business by not having the right expertise within it. And just an example of that there's a thing called the World Cybercrime Index score, and the most sort of deadly locations, if you will, Russia, Ukraine, China, US, Nigeria, Romania, North Korea, UK, Brazil, and India. UK falls at 9%, just to give you an idea of percentages there. But the main reasons for these causes these days is simple stuff: lost or stolen devices, insiders or disgruntled employees, hackers employing cyber attack vectors, and uneducated employees doing silly things, which is probably accounts for a large portion of things. In terms of why hire the CISO, but set them up for success, because that's quite an important factor. There are three different approaches that are used in terms of what structure should exist within an organization. The more modern approach is actually a CISO reporting into the CEO and being board aligned, so reporting directly into a CEO. A common approach, probably a little bit more across the US than perhaps the UK or Europe, is more a risk-aligned approach, and that's reporting into a general counsel, COO, or CFO. And the very traditional approach is sitting under IT or a CIO. So those are kind of the three approaches that are taken. The simplest and obvious is promote your CISO to report into the CEO. And there was a report that stated, and I won't give exact percentages, but in each one of these, when the CISO reported into a CIO, there were better performance results across all three aspects. One was gaining more control over the cybersecurity program with increased management responsibility. Two was find less resistance when asking for and spending money in terms of security budgets. Three was simplify the security stack and vendor portfolio. Four was experience fewer breaches. And five was increase the awareness of cybersecurity responsibilities across the employer base. And that's more important, and that is because it's a top-down approach. The CEO is bought in and the leadership team are bought in, and therefore you're able to drive that change. So that hopefully gives a bit of a flavor as to why and what we're doing and what we need to do about it to make it make businesses more resilient ultimately.
Fantastic, thanks, Byron. And yeah, clearly some serious risks there when it comes to those figures that you were mentioning there. So thinking about technology change then, alongside this, is it a surprise? Are we shocked to see technology change being ranked so highly by senior leaders as a challenge they're facing now and in the future, do we think?
I think
I wouldn't say so. No, I think, look, whether you're dealing with cyber security, as Byron rightly said just there, or technology change, one thing that I know for sure is that we live in a massively complicated world where resilience is key. Okay, and when we're dealing with the sort of the challenges that we face across business and massively volatile political landscape, whether that is fluctuating interest rates or changes in consumer habits, companies need to be able to pivot quickly. Technology is an enabler of that. But then the challenge for leaders when you're looking at implementing new technology is the cost of that tech, the cost of implementation, and also the cost of disruption to business norm. And that will always be a real challenge to business. I think for leaders, they need to ensure that they have the funding in place, not just for the technology itself, but also when you start to consider what are the benefits that you want to realize from implementing that technology. And it may be cost out, so it may be redundancies, and is all of that taken into consideration? And you've also then, from a people perspective, I think, got to ensure that you have the right capability internally. That capability to be able to stand the test of time through the transformation, and make sure that those individuals across the business are absolutely resilient to the change. So there's a lot that will always be on a leader's mind when thinking about technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in terms of what we support across that piece, we support a lot of businesses going through, whether it be ERP, whether it be finance, whether it be HR, payroll, CRM change, using technologies, S/4HANA, Oracle Fusion, D365, Salesforce, Workday, NetSuite, whatever it might be. Particularly looking at things like S/4HANA, which are very topical in the market at the moment, where there's a huge shortage of skill set. Everyone's waited to end of life scenario, which was meant to be 2027, probably pushed out to 2030. But everyone's going at the same time. So that rarity of the skill set is a challenge for the success of an outcome of a program. Costs are spiraling. People, these programs can cost up to in hundreds of millions, 200, 250 in some instances, if not more. And if they don't get them right, how often do we hear, oh, it was meant to be 2 years, it's now 4 years in. We're on the third program director, whatever it might be. It's a huge risk factor for many businesses, and quite often when it fails, you get CIOs, CFOs, heads roll. So it is something that there's a big risk element to getting this right, and therefore having the right people leading these particular implementations. And I think too often businesses rely on internal capability to lead that rather than bringing in experts with battle scars who can put the right structure governance process around. In different instances, sometimes you need a bull in a china shop type approach. You need someone who can just really bash through, and others you need a subtle influencer who can navigate their way through political situations to make sure it lands. And in many cases, a thing like an ERP is also a catalyst to broader transformational change. You can use that to drive all the different functional change elements across the business. So it does become end-to-end business change quite often rather than just a systems change, because it's far easier to do it at once.
Thanks both. Yeah. And I mean, clearly there, as you're talking through that, there's a lot of implications. Technology change doesn't just happen in a vacuum here. It has a lot of knock-on effects. So Ems, coming to you, what's the impact then? If we're thinking, I suppose, from a people and talent lens, what was the impact of this technology change has been a big challenge on those aspects in an organization?
I think the key thing is to really focus to begin with that a technology transformation is not simply about putting in a new system. Arguably, and I'm sure I'll get shot down for this by all the technology experts, but the technology side of things is almost the easy bit. The people change aspect is the hard bit. You cannot rely on the fact that people will want change, will embrace change. So if I think about the challenges, I mean, certainly if I look at the facts, 33% of people in our survey ranked talent as a real issue. And actually, I think in this context, it is about getting the right talent involved. But I think most importantly, start right at the top. So from a people perspective, I think the two key areas are leadership and the second one being talent, and neither is more important than the other. The leadership piece is critical, without stating the obvious again. I think this has to be sponsored from the top and people have to be consistent. So I think getting the leadership team on the same page, really bought in, is really critical. And then from a talent perspective, it's really understanding, as the guys were just saying, everyone's going to be doing this at the same time. There are deadlines that are approaching. That war for talent is going to be really critical, and everyone's going to want the same skill set. So ultimately, there will not be enough people in your business that, one, have the experience already. So really understand the value of bringing people in to really plan properly, and understand the importance of internal talent, developing people, but external talent, whether it be advisors, consultants, interims, thought leaders, but really focus and really think now, if there is going to be a shortage in that talent, what can we do about it? So certainly people leaders in my world will be thinking, well into the future around, if we are going to have talent shortages, what can we do about it? Are there internal things? Are there development programs? So for me, I think, yes, the tech transformation is really important and getting the tech right, but leadership and talent, absolutely put those up there with the tech piece and have it running side by side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of the attendees we've got on here seems to be music to their ears, Emma. We've got so agree with you. Let's not forget about culture. The reality is delivering it needs to be a holistic approach, people, processes, and technology. So I think we all recognize the fact that it is a very complex beast and involves lots and lots of people to make it a success. So thinking about those two aspects then, that we're thinking about those challenges, cybersecurity, technology change, and these implications, what does it mean for senior leaders right now, and what they need to consider and how they operate moving forwards, do we think?
Okay,
I think
I can go with that one.
Sorry, Simon.
Yeah, do you want me to go with that one? Look, I think senior leaders don't join a business because they fundamentally want to lead a transformation of technology or a function. They join a business because the journey that they could take it on because of its purpose, or something that may well be very personal to them. And whether that business may be in decline or it may need repivoting, there's no doubt about it that they will need to sponsor technology or any kind of functional transformation along the way. I think the key thing for them, and I bang the drum about this all the time, is that any senior leader who is embarking on transformation has got to where they've got to because they're brilliant at leading business, leading people, inspiring. They're not necessarily brilliant at leading a transformation. And that's where it's imperative to get to bring in a trusted advisor. Someone who, over a period of time where there will be a lot of tension, a lot of pressure, will build a pretty personal relationship with the overall sponsor and the exec team. And I think if leaders think about first and foremost, they're on a winning chance of moving that transformation forward. The trusted advisor is there as their conscience. They bring the experience. And although costly, I can promise you now, no one will bat an eyelid at the cost of bringing in the trusted advisor if a transformation is delivered on time and to budget. And as Peter Hughes rightly said, plenty of them do fail. And more often than not, it's not having the right people in place at the right time.
I think just adding to that, Simon, I think it's also, and you see the comments on the side, I think it's also having buy-in from the exec team down. So I think in many cases, in some cases, businesses are forced almost to go through a technology transformation. If I use an SAP S/4HANA example, a lot of them are doing it because they not necessarily want to, because they have to, a product's coming to end of life, and therefore it's a massive investment, but not necessarily much return back. But we've been working, recently with a client where there's been challenges in terms of they went through an initial implementation that failed, reputational damage across the business. The technology function's reputation was scarred as a result. And they've had to work really hard to build that reputation back up again, get the right people in place to get that buy-in from the top exec, because if they're not bought in, then when you start talking to regional leadership, you're talking about to manufacturing, finance, operations, supply chain. If there's no buy-in, you're never going to drive anything. That culture of change across the business, that buy-in, the people understanding what journey they're about to embark on and why, you're just never going to be successful. So it is, the people, process, technology thing is very important, but it starts with people and culture and that buy-in piece from the top down.
Nice. Thank you both. So moving us on then slightly, thinking about the skills that are required. So unsurprisingly, what we found in our survey was that digital skills and understanding was one of the highest rated skills that leaders thought would be required now and in the future over the next 5 years. When we broke the responses down by people with functional expertise, there were some interesting stats that came out. So the first one I just want to pick up on here, you'll see on the slide in front of you, and I'm going to come to you, Emma Claire, for this one. With the HR experts and leaders that replied to the survey, we'll see that it's just under 20% of them had digital skills and understanding rated as a top skill they thought they needed right now. However, that jumps up more than 10%, kind of around 15% really, to just over 30% of them think it's going to be a key skill that's going to be required over the next 5 years. So I'm just going to throw this over to you in terms of why you think we're seeing that from the HR professionals that filled in this survey, that big increase that they see over the next 5 years.
I think some of it is probably the historical frustration from people leadership teams. I think they are supporting often in bigger transformation, whether it be tech or whether it be broader business transformation. And I think certainly a lot of the clients I work with, they totally understand the importance of digital and improving what they're doing as an organization. But I think what they're suffering from often is the underinvestment and not being supported in driving that into their sort of HR function itself. And I think, maybe some of that frustration then is you see the difference in the percentages. They know it's important, but it's been underinvested in. They don't have good people data. And I think what we have to be really clear on here is, people data should not just be about simple basic data and operational things. People data is critical to drive really robust commercial business decisions. It's not an HR subject. People data, people is going to be your biggest cost in your organization and your biggest asset. So I think there is definitely a hang up there in terms of underinvestment from an HR data perspective. But I don't know any good CPO that wouldn't say it's critical, it's important. They've been fighting to get the investment and it is starting to come through. So, we are definitely seeing some organizations that have that people data side right. But your people data needs to go hand in hand with your finance data and with your broader business data, and it's going to inform decisions. So I think the sponsorship there is from CPOs, but probably a frustration historically. They just haven't had the investment, and an HR system shouldn't be viewed just as all about your HR policy and HR basic data. It's your business commercial decisions that will be backed off that very important people data.
Nice. Yeah, very interesting. And I guess hopefully from a HR and people perspective, that dial is starting to shift a little bit and things are starting to change from that perspective. So I'm just going to throw this one back up again. I'm going to come to you this time, Simon, looking at this. One thing that kind of stood out for us when we were looking were the finance leaders that responded to this. So we'll see that right now they've got around 25% of the finance leaders that completed this thought it was a really key skill to be developing in senior leaders. But that actually drops down to around 20% of finance leaders feel that it's something that's required over the next 5 years. And we'll notice that in terms of over the next 5 years, that is the lowest figure there across all departments and the CEOs. So I'm just interested to get your thoughts on why that might be the case.
Yeah, I can see there's a lot of chat in the webinar chat here, so please don't shoot me down. It's an opinion. AI and automation, I would argue, has been around in the finance function for as long as I've been recruiting. And when you look in the world of shared services and transactional processing, certainly across P2P and order to cash, you can see where automation has started to come in, and in certain businesses they will go as far as zero touch invoicing and things like that. I guess it's not necessarily involving deep learning, but some of the more mature businesses have certainly gone as far as really driving automation through record to report and even further into in-depth analysis and bringing that all the way through to commercial and financial planning. So I reckon finance leaders have seen it as part of their job and understanding for a number of years. I also think the role of the CFO has broadened considerably, and as such, we probably need to work on different areas of the skill sets, and a lot of that I think is it's greasing the cogs of the business. It's ensuring that every function, every operational area has the information that it requires to perform and deliver as expected by the overall business. And I think CFOs have to focus on that ability to manage different communication styles and keep everybody at bay. And that's probably something slightly different from where they might have been 10 years ago.
Thanks, Simon. Really, yeah, definitely, completely can see that happening for sure. So I'm going to move us on slightly, still technology focused a little bit, and we're going to go on to that hot potato topic that is AI that everyone is talking about. Can't move for AI at the moment. So just going to throw up again some results here that we got. So when it came to, we asked our survey respondents, do they think AI will play a significant role in the success of their organization over the next 5 years? And that orange bar on the right-hand side, that's the number of respondents that said, yes, they believe AI will play a significant role in the success of their organization. So almost 80% of our respondents thought that, yes, AI would play a significant role. So really, really high response rate on that, which is understandable. What was interesting, though, when we looked, we also asked them a question, are they likely to run an AI transformation program in the next 5 years? So are they planning to start to implement and bring things in on AI? Again, we had around 50% of respondents that said, yes, they are going to be looking to do that in the next 5 years. So a lot of people saying they're going to do it. But what's interesting there is you've got a bit of quite a gap there, a significant gap in the people that think it's going to play a significant role in the success of their organization and those that are actually going to implement a transformation program when it comes to it. So I suppose looking at that, how, from the conversations you're having, from what we're seeing in the market, how can organizations prepare themselves to embrace AI in the best possible way and set themselves up for success?
Hopefully, sorry, I've just had some technical issues. Hopefully it will play ball. So I think ultimately it's defining what AI is for you as a business. And I think, when you speak to multiple clients, they throw the word Gen AI out there, never mind AI, and many people are still grappling with what AI is for them as an organization. I think you start with what capabilities do you have internally? Do you have a chief data officer or a data or AI or robotics expert in-house? And that's kind of the starting block, not dissimilar to CISO. You want to have someone in the business who has that expertise, and also they're structurally set up to be successful. So certainly when we speak to a number of different chief data officers or head of data and analytics, whatever the titles may be, the ones who are actually able to drive successive outcomes are typically the ones who are reporting into either the CEO or another ELT member, where they've actually got the traction, there's buy-in from the top down. It does depend on the leadership team. Some CEOs are very data savvy. We've come across ones who've worked, either worked in consulting firms where they've been at the forefront and the sort of leading edge of what data and AI is. But others just don't really have an understanding of what the art of the possible is in that scenario. So I think you need to start with an expert, set them up for success, and then they will start looking across the organization on creating what are the use cases, what are you trying to achieve as a business, because this whole piece needs to be aligned to what is your business strategy. There's pointless coming in and they defining a strategy that goes in a totally different totally different direction to where the business wants to achieve. The whole AI piece and Gen AI is productivity, it's effectiveness, but it's also the ability to achieve your business goals and outcomes in a more efficient manner. And hopefully we're accelerating those moving forward, so that where we've seen the most success is where it's working closely with the exec, the board, the CEO. It's a top-down effect, pushing that across the organization. It's starting off small with the right use cases, starting to demonstrate success across the business, getting buy-in across regional, divisional leadership, whatever it might be, and starting to really push things and drive things forward. But I think business is in such a different state. We've got to be cautious about saying, someone to run before they can walk, and you need the right person. Part of it is education across the business of the art of the possible. We've recently had some events, etc. And what's quite interesting looking at that piece is different functional areas view AI in a totally different manner. And some of them are ultimately very don't actually even know where to start. So they're almost crippled by the knowledge of we need to do something, but we don't know how to do it or where to even start. So by bringing in the right expert, whether it's a chief data officer, whatever the title may be, it's someone who can work with those different business units, understand where they are, where they're trying to get to, what their challenges are. And through the use of AI and Gen AI, they can start driving initiatives that will enable them to achieve their goals. So I think it's about bringing the right people capability in. It's about education, and it's about starting small and achieving those outcomes. But it is, and I see a lot of comments coming through, boards in a very traditional environment, they've got no clue. They don't understand what it is, but they know they need to do something. So a lot of education, a lot of training needs to happen to get that top-down effect, to get the buy-in. So that's kind of where we need to start.
And I'm smiling because actually people on this screen that know me well will probably think me talking about AI is hilarious. But I think it probably highlights that actually generationally, if you are in a big organization, you will have diversity across your generations, and there will be people in your business at all age groups. But very much, I think, if you think about some of the earlier career people, they will be all over AI. They will know what's going on. They will be using different things in their personal lives. And I think this is where it's almost the reverse mentoring kind of structure. Yes, it's important that leadership is right, but the leaders will not have all the answers. In fact, they're probably terrified about what's going on from an AI perspective. There will be people across the entire organization and every functional area who are really interested in this, and not necessarily in their work life, but just in their general life. And I think there's a real opportunity to look at talent internally, not just the external experts that can come in, but look at people who are really interested in the subject and get people together, get people really interested across all the different functional areas, and create almost a new team of people that do it as probably part of their day job, so they don't get taken away completely, but actually learn from these people that have all got personal interests. And it's not just always about the top down, it's bottom up. I think it's really important to embrace some of those newer ideas. I know in our business there are some brilliant ideas flowing, and they don't come from me. So ultimately think about those younger generations and people who are really interested in technology.
Makes sense. Makes absolute sense. And I'll take on from there. The question that I'm asking myself is, if not now, then when? And by that I mean, it's coming down the track, and there's definitely a sense of urgency around how we adopt the use of AI. But I think it is about looking into the business and trying to find individuals, especially in places where you might be a consumer-facing business. There will be people right at the front, your face of your company, who will have great ideas about how AI can help, especially when it comes to things like changing consumer demands and how businesses can be more effective with the use of technology. So I would absolutely encourage anybody to look into the business, and as you say, Ems, absolutely, it's bottom up thinking, isn't it?
And I think the reality is, AI has become far more of a topic now with ChatGPT and others, far more accessible to the everyday person. Whereas if you speak to most technologists or people who've been in the data and AI field, it's been around for 20 or 30 years. It's just now suddenly there's an acceleration around the adoption of this piece that has become far more topical, and people are still grappling with what AI is versus Gen AI. So we've got to move forward at the pace that a business can handle, but they need to understand what the art of the possible is.
So then thinking about that, obviously we've spoken there about looking internally, what talent have we got internally, and how can we build that? Byron, you made some really good points there around kind of, how are we bringing that in? What's the business case for it? How, are we starting small? Are we growing it? We work with clients on a regular basis, placing permanent members into their teams, but also interim talent into their teams as well. From your perspectives, how do you think organizations should approach this in terms of getting permanent talent in, or is sometimes for them an interim solution a good approach to take to kind of kick things off from an AI transformation perspective?
I think whether it's AI or any transformation, I think it's relevant to all of those areas that you need to be thinking about future talent and actually recognizing that change and transformation is constant and always evolving. So, we talk about certain things in AI now, it's what will be next. So I think transformation skills, change skills, program skills will be all the time. Now, clearly, you will need to bring in certain skill sets that might be consultants, might be advisors, might be interim, but equally building your internal talent for the future. I think, really thinking ahead of time, what will come next, and almost trying to think about the permanent hiring you need to do so that you're supplementing the advisors that come in on more of an ad hoc, very senior, very specialist basis, but that you are building the capability. And certainly, HR people will be very much focusing on, how are we going to be built for success in the future, and making sure that isn't just about now, but it is very much around, what will happen after AI, what's the next big transformation that's going to come down the line. And you've got internal people that can manage that as well as some of the people that you bring in on an advisor basis. And Matt, it's really interesting to have two of you on the screen now.
Apologies, I'm having a few tech issues with Zoom.
Is this your avatar that's joined as well now, so that we've got two?
Exactly. You can never have too many of me, Ems. And Byron, you talking, kind of thinking about how you implement and get that business case right, and thinking about how you do that. Again, what are you seeing in terms of but building that on a permanent basis, or more on an interim perspective? What do you think?
I think we speak to loads of clients at the moment, and some are 3-4 years ahead of others, if not more. Many clients are looking to invest in that talent and capability now. Some of them had built hubs, but they didn't have a true and effective leader. So, they spent a lot of money, but not really had much return. Others are right at the beginning phase of that journey, and in each business wants to move at a slightly different pace. They know they need to do something. They're not always sure what to do. But certainly what we see in many instances, by sometimes bringing that interim capability, that tried and tested, the battle scars, etc., they can help kickstart and accelerate an initial strategy. Whilst they, because the reality is, to bring in a permanent leader who's in another role is going to take 6 to 12 months whilst you run a search process, notice period, etc. So often bringing in those interim proven capability can help really kickstart a process to have a permanent person come in thereafter and either deliver on the strategy the interim set up, or take it to the next level thereafter. But certainly businesses are building out, data science capability, analytics capability, etc., from a more central group perspective, whereas historically they probably had some expertise and pockets around the organization, but nowadays it's a more centralized strategy, building out that capability and really trying to advance what they can do across the organization.
I think learning is so important, isn't it? But equally, I think you have to really quiz yourself as a leadership team. Yes, you want people in your organisation to learn and develop, but you need those battle scars, you need the grey hairs, you need the experience, don't you, to actually bring people in that have been there, done that. They can really help you plan whilst taking people on a learning journey at the same time. So it's a combination of the two, I think, that is absolutely critical. You can't afford to be just giving it a shot. Let's give it a stab and see whether this transformation works with our internal people that have never done it before. That's just not fair on anybody, and it's highly unlikely to be successful. But you want people internally to be learning as part of that process. So having the two side by side, I think, is the only way to run a successful transformation.
That's a fantastic segue for us, Ems, into our last kind of overarching theme, which is kind of looking at what the secrets to successful transformation are. And in the survey, we asked people what were the biggest challenges they faced during transformation. And you'll see now from the stats I'm putting on screen. So the green bars are people that had said they felt their transformation program had been unsuccessful, and the orange bars are when they felt their transformation had been a success. Now, what you'll see there is the key challenges and the biggest disconnect we've got there between unsuccessful and successful is on a lack of a transformation strategy, the lack of leadership skills to drive the program, and a lack of transformation skills in the organization. So really, I think what we're seeing here that's coming through the responses is the quality of that leadership for these transformation programs to be a success is absolutely critical. So Simon, I'm going to kind of come to you on this one then. I suppose, like, what do we think, kind of looking at this and from our experience of working with organizations, what does this tell us about what makes transformation programs a success?
Yeah, interesting one. I think I'll come back to that point I said earlier. Leaders of businesses are brilliant at leading businesses. It's what they're there to do, not necessarily to be brilliant leaders of transformation. As they go through transformation time and time again on their career journey, they will of course get more experience. But if you think about the bell curve of transformation, there's massive pressure right at the point when a company is right in the heart of it, and that's pressure on people. It's probably pressure on cash as well, amongst lots of other things. And I think the absolute key to success, again, as I said earlier, is making sure that ahead of any transformation, way ahead, that the leadership team does have that trusted advisor. That individual that will be with them for a period of time throughout that program of change, and it will only be a period of time because they're not going to need to be there forever. If I think about what I've seen over the last couple of years, we've supported a number of companies, big companies that have been carved out of FTSE, NASDAQ, huge listed businesses. They've been carved out to stand on their own. And it always amazes me how little attention is given to the resource profiles required to stand up a business to get it out of a TSA. It's amazing. It never has the attention it should have. And again, I'd go back to success is all about having the right people in there advising on the client side to make sure that you're set up from the start, that you have all the information prepared and ready to go before the advisors come in on day one. And most importantly, you know when you're going to exit them before they've even started, which reduces the burn rate, it reduces the cost, and it ensures that you've got a fighting chance of delivering something on time.
I think in the chat as well, there's been some really interesting comments. And again, with my people lens on and the world I play in, I think you can never underestimate the importance of how you involve your people. Now, you obviously can't share things all right from the start. Some transformations can be quite sensitive, but I think that whole, getting the right people from an HR or people change perspective involved in the program. So it's not, again, going back to earlier, it's not just the technical program, it's the people aspect of it. Any transformation, the highest rate of failure of transformation will be because the people are not engaged. They don't want the change. They're not trained properly. The comms have not been right. The stakeholder management's not been right. So I think, don't underestimate having people in your team that will really focus on talking about the story, planning the journey, and then getting all of the change comms, people aspects of the change totally aligned and the right budget. Again, I know plenty of programs where that side of things has been neglected, and all the best things in the world will only be good if the people in the organization actually adopt the new change. So you need to be thinking about those people aspects, and successful transformations that we see are definitely the ones that have emphasized the importance of that right from the start.
And Ems, I think it's also about being realistic, isn't it? Setting true expectations. I was talking to Kate, the NED at BIE, and she was saying it's never going to be perfection, And it's so important to set the tone from the start so that people don't think it's going to utterly change their life. But over time, things will get better and better.
Yeah, we see it so
And
often.
then,
So sorry, Matt.
but Byron, I was going to come to you and say kind of, yeah, just in terms of organizations you've worked with, and obviously you can't name names or kind of themes you've seen, but what are there patterns that you see when organizations get this right and they make a success of it? Is there things that kind of are there commonalities there that you notice?
Well, I think it's the combination of the things that both Simon and Emma Claire have said. Really, it's understanding that it's not just technology. It's not just process change. It's a top-down, all-inclusive type ordeal. And how many times do you hear people say that transformation is being done to them rather than they are part of the transformation? And often those individuals who hold a lot of the company knowledge that are disheartened by the change that's taking place. So I think you can't undervalue the communications, typically the HR transformational support around the program and change, because technology is a simple thing to change, quite frankly. The people are far older. And if you don't have that culture of we're in this together, yes, it's a journey. It's going to be bumpy rides. And how often do transformations go according to plan and on time? There's always detours, etc. So you need those advisors, those trusted supports, whether it be HR, whether it be commercial people, whatever it might be, but you need that right support front. And the ones who get that right are the ones who land successful transformations, the ones who just drive technology, enforce it on their people and say, this is the way it is. It just doesn't work, or you lose that knowledge and you lose those years of service that become critical to business moving forward. So yeah, I think all of those different aspects, it's understanding that everything is interlinked when you are driving a program of change like this.
So final question from me then for the panel. So kind of, what we're describing here is very complex. There's massive people implications. Obviously, Byron, as you say, there's technology that needs to be implemented, but then there's people and processes and everything that comes with that. So in terms of kind of when we're working with organizations and individuals, what sort of skills do we think are key in those transformation leaders? Are there key things that we think absolutely this person has to have these sort of skills to be able to deliver a successful transformation? Are there any patterns in that?
I think it's track record without, again, there's lots of obvious comments here, but, I think for somebody to lead it, would you want somebody to lead something that has never done something before? You cannot underestimate the value of experience and battle scars and mistakes that have been made along the way that somebody learns from. So I think, ultimately track record that gives you the confidence that somebody's been there, done that in a similar environment, similar scale. If it's global complex organization, they've done that before. So that has to be one of the key things of bringing in an advisor, is somebody that you can look at and think, yeah, you've done this before, you can help us.
I think there's that piece around understanding the environment you're operating in, because each business has their own unique culture, and you need to understand, the perfect program director or transformation executive, whatever the title may be, will understand. They'll have the levels of empathy they require. They'll have the influencing skills. They'll know when they need to be a battering ram to make an impact or get something to happen, but then they also know when to hang back and take people along the journey with them. So I think everyone who's got to this level and with a depth of experience kind of has the technical skill set to a degree. Obviously not everyone, but it's kind of taken as a given. It's many times it's the softer skills that get someone across the line that, because what we're seeing, certainly in terms of hiring now, interim used to be, you've got a call on a Friday, that person, they met people on a Monday and they started on Tuesday. Nowadays, we're seeing that interim process mirroring, and I can see my colleagues smiling here. It's mirroring a little bit, not quite a search, full-on search process, but there's a lot more rigor and depth put into hiring the right person. There are far more individuals involved in that hiring decision these days because of how critical it is to the success of those programs. So I think the softer skills come into play far more than they ever have these days.
And Byron, to add to that, I think you look at some of the programs that we've been involved with. they matter to businesses. They can be game changers. They really can. And so that's why it's so crucial to absolutely get these decisions right. Clients always ask us, they give us the exam question, and we have to then go and try and solve it by providing different types of individuals. The simple facts are the skill sets are always a given. They time and time again delivered major change and transformation, but it comes down to how they go and do it. How will they interact with the board? Will they be that trusted advisor that I keep talking about? Will they also be able to dissipate down through the business and tell brilliant war stories about the fact that it will be okay, and take people on the journey? And I think when you get that combination that is right for the business, great things can happen.
Fantastic. Thank you all. And yeah, loads of comments kind of coming in, commenting on this in terms of kind of the how should always be more important than the what. And then kind of thinking about, what information do you share with people as you're going through that transformation to bring them on the journey as well. So yeah, some really interesting comments in there. I think we're going to have time for a couple of questions now at the end. If anyone's got any questions, please drop them in the chat and we can go through them. So just one question here. So what is the best example of a transformation you've seen from working with your clients? Don't know how easy it will be for us to answer that, but I'll pass that over.
It's tricky, isn't it? Because we're facing into a screen here and we have no idea who's on the screen. So we could pick an organisation that we've supported and kind of, talk very positively about their transformation, which would hopefully be a good thing, but maybe they wouldn't want us to talk about it. I think there's still a lot of, Britishness and discreetness, I think, about successful transformation. I think certainly in the context, we haven't really talked much about the network. I think about the network side of things. There are some brilliant transformations that happen, and that could be anything from a small PE business that is growing right the way through to a big global FTSE 100 business. And in each of those categories and different sectors, there will be some good successes. There are lots of failed transformations, but there are also lots of really good ones that happen. I think you have to recognise the bumps in the road, and I saw some of the comments, is if you don't plan for the unexpected, then you'll be surprised, because there'll always be bumps in the road. But that doesn't mean you can't at the end of it talk about success, because there will be difficulties, challenges, changes of direction. What I would urge, I think, with the network that we have collectively across BIE is, pick up the phone to us. You'll all probably know somebody at BIE who's your main contact. If you are of a particular size of organisation and sector and want to be connected with one of our clients that has gone through the transformation that you are talking about doing, we can connect you with ones that have had a successful outcome, but with the honest bumps in the road along the way. I think it's about sharing those experiences. So, I think Chatham House rules sometimes with some of the networking events that we do. We have dinners where we can bring a small number of clients who are like-minded or about to face into technology transformation or global business services or challenges within their sector. So again, it's much easier for us to talk specifically about examples when it's a little bit more controlled and we don't have lots of people sitting on a screen. But there are successes, I think, but successes come as a result of challenges, mistakes, changes of direction, replanning, restructuring what you're doing. It's not just, I think, look at us, we managed our transformation successfully and it's the easiest thing we've ever done. That would be a very naive client to say that. But yeah, lots of good stories we'd love to share with you, but probably on a more intimate setting, I would say.
Well, I think Matt's disappeared there for a second, but there might be a nice segue, Matt, into, I think Russ Ogden's asked a question, which is an interesting one. I think it's one that, yes, we do face challenges with, and I'm sure, Simon, you could add on to what I say here, but in many cases, the people we do utilize do come from consultancy backgrounds. They've got up to director, senior director, sometimes partner level. So they have had the branding behind them before, but obviously are a BIE person in that context. So a lot depends on the client, their fear of failure. Quite frankly, it also depends on what part, at what stage do you engage with the client. The sooner we can engage with the client to help shape their thinking, rather than they come to us at the point where they need to hire someone, that comes with a different challenge and story. You know, acting as a trusted partner when they are shaping what they need to do from a transformation enables us to put individuals in front of them that have come from consulting backgrounds, but have also in reality done it in person. Because in many cases, the people who come from consulting background haven't always delivered an end-to-end transformation, haven't dealt with the legacy and fallout of what that actually means when you do implement that strategy and what 12 months after looks like. So that's typically the type of individual we put in front of clients, are the ones who've actually been through that, got the battle scars, know how to deal with the legacy and fallout from once you actually drive that change. So that's what you don't always get, but there will always be clients who want that big brand name above the door, a bit like the analogy of you can't go wrong with hiring IBM, who are risk averse and will just go down that route. And sometimes it's when they've gone down that route and failed that they come back to us. So it can be a challenge for us, but ultimately it's working with the client and trying to be that advisor right at the beginning phase of a transformation rather than once they've defined the path they're on. Simon, I'm sure you can add.
Yeah, Byron, I can add to that, and a bit more on Russ's question there. I think what we can provide BIE is that service of, and I've said it enough times during this session, it is the trusted advisor, and I would encourage the sponsor of that change to get that individual in way before engaging with the consultancy. A consultancy and SI, they have their place and will be brilliant at what they do, but a client won't know necessarily how to manage them, and that's making sure that before you even switch your consultancy on, you've got the business ready to provide the information required for them to do their job, or before the technology is going to be implemented, the business is ready to receive it as much as it can be. And that's where I think you can have client-side advice working incredibly well with the consultancies, with the SIs, ensuring that you get an effective transformation.
Perfect. Well, I think that's probably a perfect place to leave it, I think. So just want to give my thanks to the panelists, to Simon, Emma Claire and Byron. Thanks for your time and sharing all your insights with us today. Simon, hopefully now with all the comments coming in, you can now class yourself as an expert, and people can listen to on this topic. So
tell stories.
Exactly. So thanks a lot everyone for your time this morning. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.